All right, so let's everybody take a deep breath and close our eyes and let's just breathe into that beautiful place of loving kindness, of gratitude, of awareness of our divinity, of awareness of the great blessing of reading books by people like Emilie Cady, who were so ahead of their time and brought so many enlightened ideas to the world. And as we work with her content and learn from her amazing writing, we ask her again to show up and help us and illuminate this class with ideas and wisdom. And we also know that everything we all need to hear and to learn, we will experience. And we also know that there are people here that will benefit from things that we say, and we will benefit from things that others say. And that's how these soul agreement meetings work, by divine order. And for that, we are very grateful. And so it is. So I'm going to ask you guys if you want to unmute. So I'd like to start by talking about last week's content and what ideas, any new ideas or thoughts on it. So for example, last week we talked about Emilie Cady's discussion of moving from bondage to liberation. And we talked about how that can mean anything from how we defined God as a child to how we define God now. We also talked about the idea of forgiveness being giving something good for something that was not good, which I love that definition. And then chapter 2, we talked about the definition of God as a statement of being, as God is love, God is wisdom, spirit, intelligence, and power, and the creative underlying cause of all things, which is just a beautiful statement, and how God is in everything that happens to us. And then the third chapter, we talked about the mortal mind and how the mortal mind can't understand the difference between truth and falsehood, and that's our problem here on earth. and that the God consciousness within us is our divine mind, and that when we get in touch with that, we are filled with wisdom and understanding. We also talked about being a fountain of love for others so that we don't become stagnant in our energy. And chapter 4 was about denials, which is so powerful, such an important tool, that we deny something the power to overwhelm us. We can deny, well, she lists the 4 denials as denying evil, denying absence of life, denying pain, sickness, or death, and denying fear, which is so great. I mean, let's do that every single day. I think it's interesting because we all have these little challenges that come along that we can really, step into our denials and affirmations and really find kind of instant comfort. And so this week, we're starting out with that discussion of chapter 5, the affirmations. And today I had another day of that, giving a talk to a panel and being tested. And I woke up with one of my ocular migraines. I've been getting those my whole life. So it's not terrible, like it doesn't shut me down or anything, but I just know that for 30 minutes I can't see because everything's wavy. And then I get a headache, but I took an Advil and it kind of has been keeping it under control today. But in order to go then into my testing situation and give my talk and answer their questions, I had to really do a lot of denials and affirmations today. So I was like, I deny this headache any power over my ability to deliver a good talk, to think clearly when they ask me questions. And I affirm that I know everything I need to know to pass this experience with flying colors. And even though a huge part of me didn't believe that, just saying it over and over really helped to raise my energy. And that's what I love about these denials and affirmations, because they're really about faith. So the next chapter is called Faith. And it's, well, let me just read to you. And it's funny that Emilie Cady has this quote in her book, which is the quote, without having read Emilie Cady yet in that chapter, I had picked this same quote to start the talk that I delivered all week to my testing panels. And it starts, it's faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen, Hebrews 11:1. And that is what faith in the goodness of the universe really is. It's like, I don't have any evidence that this is really going to happen the way I want it to. I might even have evidence that it's not going to go well. And yet when I affirm and deny that it is going to go in the right direction, I am stepping into the power of that conviction of things not seen, assurance of things hoped for. And that's such a powerful place to be and to go. So those two chapters this week, but before we get into this week, I wanted to ask you all, what are any lingering thoughts, questions, comments about last week's discussion of bondage and liberty, and who is God, and the mortal mind, and denials? No. Okay. Do you have any thoughts at all this week about what you read this week in chapter 5, 6, 7, and 8?
I do, Sue.
Go ahead, Toby.
Well, I'm hesitant. I'm a little nervous because I'm flying to upstate New York to spend time with my son, who just got out of the hospital a few hours ago. Yeah. And he was so aggressive, manic. And I'm like, oh, please. And then I read the part, there is no personality in the universe. There is nothing but God. And I'm just keep repeating that. You know, I'm not going to affirm his personality.
Yes.
And I really would love to ask everybody in this class for extra prayer, because people have told me not to go, and I feel like I need to go, going alone. And you know, I just want prayer around that only good is going to happen. And you know, there's no personality in the universe. It's just nothing but God. And I keep repeating that.
Toby, I love your heart so very much.
That's
and yes,
to me.
We are all holding you in absolute prayer and love and light, knowing that your mother's intuition is correct to go and see him. And we validate that for you, because a mother's intuition is never wrong. And knowing that you will not be pulled off your center by a personality, even if his personality is damaged, his core God individuality is intact.
Yes.
And so the
Amen.
personality you can just even ignore if you can, and just really focus on the God within him as much as you can. And I think even approaching him with that energy will help shift his behavior, because without even saying any words, he will feel the energy that you're bringing, to see him. And we will all be holding you in so much love and light and prayer. How long are you going to be there?
Leaving Saturday early morning, and I have 2 tickets coming home in case I want to get out of there fast. But I'm really planning on being there till March 31st.
Okay, so that's what.
But you know what, Sue? What I learned last week, thank you, people, was I keep closing my eyes and seeing him happy and smiling. And I was thinking, how often have I ever seen him happy? And it was like twice almost in his lifetime that I've ever seen him with such joy and happiness. And, I'm trying to visualize that for him.
Right.
So, because he deserves it. He needs to change. Oh.
Yeah. But the other thing that, Toby, the way we can also look at this is, even if he continues in the disturbing personality behavior,
Oh,
there is a soul in him that is still learning exactly what he came here to learn, and that we can bless the divine order of it all, no matter how painful it looks. I mean, I even think about when people are dying of a very painful disease, and to those of us who love them, who are trying to care for them, it just seems utterly horrible that they would be in that state. And yet inside of their soul, there is something going on that they feel is helping them burn away negativity, perhaps, and helping them merge more with God consciousness. We don't know. We can't tell from this outer view of it. So again, just trusting and having faith that whatever journey his soul is on, that we trust it is the journey of his soul's evolution. And so we'll just love him for that state, for that process.
thank you so much.
And Toby, text me or even call me when you're there if you're in trouble. If you need some,
Okay, thank you.
just give me a call. I love you.
He's very strong. He's very, very powerful.
Yeah, I know.
Scary sometimes.
All right, who else has something to say about this Emilie Cady work that we've been talking about? Yes, Burl.
Well, where do I start?
You'll know.
Yesterday was a very, very bad day for me.
Oh, babe.
It was the anniversary of when my son was buried.
Oh,
He died a month ago, but he wasn't buried for a month because the ground was frozen where we lived.
right,
And I don't know if I shared this last week, but 2 people died at the same time,
right.
a mother and a father, and they left 2 children.
Right.
And this year, it's been many, many, many years. And usually I get through it, okay? But this year it really, really hit me. But I'm telling you, Unity of Phoenix is where it's all at. I have so many good friends there who got me through it yesterday. And we had service angels today, and Reverend Rogers was phenomenal last night.
Mhm.
His whole message is love, love, love. It's all about love.
Mhm.
And this morning, those of you that get the daily word, it was speaking to me personally. So if the rest of you heard it, that's okay. But it really was speaking to me. And then we had service. So we had service angels this morning at the church, and it was read, and I went, oh, wow, that's talking to me. And then I came home and finished reading Emilie Cady, and I'm a new woman. I'm a new woman right now. I have released all of the negativity. I know that my son is in heaven and happy. And I just need to accept what happened so many years ago.
Yeah.
And I have accepted it many times.
Right.
But it sometimes things happen, and nothing really has happened that would put me into a negative thinking right now.
Yeah.
But it just hit me all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It really did.
Well, I know there's a lot of other moms on here who've lost children, and we can all, they can all validate, and I can just validate from regular grief that it just sometimes shows up for no apparent reason. And it just means that it's another call to heal another level of yourself.
Yeah.
And the only way to do it is to walk through the pain. But you're doing everything right, Virl. You're surrounding yourself with all the great people like Kate and the people at Unity of Phoenix who love on you, and I love on you, and this whole class loves on you. And, like we were saying, I don't know if you were here in the early part of this class, but we were talking about how the hard thing about grief is we are all human and we are all divine at the same time. So
Right.
even if our divine self totally understands that our departed loved one is fine and is even still communicating with us, our human self is going to miss them forever.
Yeah.
And that's just the path of grief. So don't ever fight it. Don't ever feel bad about it coming back. Just accept it and take the lesson of it and surrender to it. And you will be filled with grace and love and healing as you are. And we hold you in that place right now, Virl.
And did I show my pin last week? Can you guys see this?
Is that a
Oh,
yeah.
hummingbird?
It's
What
a
is-
hummingbird.
Yes, that's beautiful.
And my son was always fascinated with hummingbirds.
Oh,
And a neighbor of mine who I had shared that with her a while ago, she, on my birthday,
Mhm.
which was last week. Boy, what a
Oh.
birthday. Girls, wait till you turned 80. I'm telling you, it is just nonstop celebration, nonstop celebration.
my birthday too.
Yeah, see? And, but she gave me this hummingbird. Her mother died in November of COVID.
Mm.
And she said she's been going through her mother's house and she says, I've learned two things. Number one, I'm going through my house and I'm getting rid of everything so that when I go, nobody has to go through all my stuff.
Right.
You know, she says, because this has been a nightmare. But she found this hummingbird that her mother had gotten. And she said, as soon as I saw it, I said, oh, Verl's got to have this.
Aw,
And so she gave it to me for my birthday.
look
It's
how
a
lovely
beautiful,
you
it's a
are.
beautiful hummingbird. He's
Oh,
flying, he's got a diamond for his eye. It's a side view of the hummingbird. And she said her mother wore it a lot. I've been wearing it all the time since she gave it to
Oh,
me.
that's so good.
And so it brings Jimmy close to me. It really does bring Jimmy close to me. But I just want to say thank you. I'm back. I've gotten through that dark day yesterday, and today life is looking back to normal. And the lessons this week just really spoke to me, every one
Yeah,
of them.
me
And
too.
I don't know if you guys picked up on this. Maybe I was the only one because I tend to think this way anyway. She was way ahead of her time
Mhm.
Yes.
as far as saying men don't know everything. I mean, that's what I got from the readings.
Yeah,
She became very clear that men don't know everything.
that's
Back in
exactly
those
right.
days, men were supposed to know everything. you
That's
know?
right. In those
So,
days, they
Right.
were.
Yeah.
There's always
you know.
men.
Yeah.
And but did you girls pick up? There was one phrase which I was kind of thinking about, and she talked about a relationship she had with a man for a long period of time.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that was
And then
not
he turned
good.
out to be
Yeah.
not the right one.
Yeah. Well, like I wish I could go back in time and like sit down and have lunch with her or something, because I think she would have been the coolest person to
I
talk
think so,
to.
too.
And
Yeah.
and to hear her opinions on things. So yeah, I love all of this. But one thing, so I want to, unless anybody else wants to jump in, I want to talk about these two chapters that I want us to talk about in our breakout rooms, affirmations and faith, chapter 5 and chapter 6. As Verl was saying, the affirmation part, and that's what unity does so beautifully, is affirming that we are moving through the hard parts of life with ease and grace, no matter how hard a day it may seem to be, and asserting positively that something is so, even in the face of contrary evidence. And that's what I love about that, because our world is so stuck on left brain logic, right? Well, that's not logical. There's no evidence of that. There's no proof of that. That is such limited thinking, because when we affirm something, quantum physics says that we are putting that energy out to make that a possibility for happening. And I know you have all experienced that in your lives, and I've certainly experienced it. And then when we also use a denial to help us with it, it becomes such a powerful formula. And so for Toby, for example, we deny this trip any power to make Toby doubt herself or have anxiety or a bad experience. And we affirm that this trip is a majestic spiritual unfolding of the best ever visit between her and her son. And we hold that, and we hold that for you, Toby. So I hope you're all making denials and affirmations for your lives. And then when you go into the breakout room, the first question about chapter 5 is, would you share a denial and affirmation that is helping you? And if you can't come up with one, ask the group to help you. And sometimes it's fun to say to your group members, I have this problem, and I'm wondering if you can help me create a denial and an affirmation for it. And so the group will kind of create a really juicy one. But remember to write them down. Like, Toby, I want you to take an index card and write some of these down for your trip, you know, and bring them with you so that you can just have them to go through in your purse when you need to kind of get your mind right again, you know.
Yeah, good idea.
Yep. And then the other thing is chapter 6, faith. Gosh, I just love that quote. I mean, the blessing of having to give that talk all this week is that every day I started out saying, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And to me, that is everything magic about life, because when we lose a loved one, it's the conviction of things not seen, right, Virl? That we
Yeah.
know that your son is flourishing and living in the divine realms and still loving on you and still coming to visit, and he's hanging out with other souls in the divine realms, but that is unseen. But we can have the conviction of knowing that it is so. And then the assurance of things hoped for. I just love that, because we can hope that I get passed on Saturday, that I get to be ordained, and we can hope that Toby comes back and tells us that she had the best trip ever. And and we can hope for all kinds of beautiful things, and just know that we have the assurance. Faith is the assurance of these things hoped for. Just beautiful. So in your group, you can talk about, oh, there's another great quote in that chapter where she says, faith is born of intuition, or the spirit of truth ever living at the center of our being. That is such a beautiful statement. Faith is born of intuition, or the spirit of truth ever living at the center of our being. What she's really saying is, we have faith in things because our intuition tells us that it's so, even when there's no evidence of it. And that's a validation of intuition. The other thing she says in that chapter is, intuition is the open end within one's own being of the invisible channel ever connecting each individual with God. That is so beautiful. I've defined intuition a million different ways, but this one I think is my favorite. Intuition is the open end within one's own being of the invisible channel ever connecting each individual with God. So that's another beautiful quote from chapter 6. So when you go into your rooms, the questions for this chapter 6 is, do you trust your intuition? Where do you stand on that idea of believing in things not seen? How does that play out in your life? Do you struggle with it? Or is it easy? What tools do you use to get to it? Like, for example, for me, it's meditation. When I'm working with a grieving client and I'm asking their departed spirit to come and sit with me and talk to me as I write some things for the client before the session starts, I am believing in the unseen world that spirit will come and write through me, even though often I don't see it, I just sense it. So you can talk about your experiences with that. So those are your 2 chapters for now to talk about. Share a denial and an affirmation that helped you, and talk about where you stand on that conviction of things not seen idea. And if you trust your intuition, why or why not? And on that note, I will break us. Wow, there's only 14 people here today.
Where did you go?
No, that's not. I need my people here in these classes because that's what makes it fun. All right, let's go.
There we go.
There you go. This.
What's that?
Were you sharing something when the group first got together?
Yeah, I was telling Sue that my sister's husband or my brother-in-law had passed away.
Mm.
And so I was gonna have her, because I've done quite a few sessions with Sue, and I was gonna have her, I was gonna pay for her to have a session because I thought that would be really helpful for her.
But we were talking about how her sister-in-law might need a little time to because
ready.
it was just a recent,
Yeah,
yeah.
be ready for that.
Yeah, sometimes that raw grief, we're not ready.
Right.
We're not ready to talk to anybody. Like, we're not ready to get out of bed sometimes.
Exactly.
I think that we've been talking about this for so long. And then she's going with her faith is still with her.
Mhm.
And at night it gets to it kind of gets to her, but she's always asking kind of questions, and
Mhm.
she's doing really good.
That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
It was almost like we kind of prepared ourselves for it.
Mhm.
I know you can never prepare yourself for something like that, but
Right.
as much as we could, and he was doing the same.
That's so good.
So
Yeah.
it was, and then we just kind of try to lean on each other.
Good.
That's so good. She's really blessed to have you.
Can I go to the second question first?
Do whatever you want. I'm here to listen.
Okay. Talking about listening to your intuition. I think I shared this with you girls. I had a very strong intuition that we were not supposed to go snowmobiling that day.
Wow.
And the other couple that went with us with their children, both of the husbands had gone the week before from our small town across the lake, frozen lake, to another small town, and came back and they said, see, nothing happened.
Oh,
And the temperature never went above 0 the whole week. So but when we got up that morning to go, my eye was swollen shut, and I said, here's a message, we're not supposed to go. And my husband said, oh my God, it's one thing or another with you. You
yeah.
stay home and I'll take
I'm
both
so
of the
glad
kids.
you got rid of that husband, girl.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, that was, yeah. Said,
But
you stay home, I'll take both the kids with me. If I had listened to that, if I had done that, I wouldn't have either of my children.
oh my God.
And so we were halfway across on the lake. We'd come to the pressure point where the ice, peaks. And I said, I think we need to get off the ice. I really do think that. And they went, no, we're fine. Nothing's happened. We're good. It was about 5 minutes later, we all went through the ice. 8 of us.
God.
And I didn't say, see, I told you so. But I did say to myself, wow, why didn't you listen? God was telling you, don't do this.
But
Why
girl,
was I not?
I never want you to beat yourself up about that though, baby girl.
Well, I don't, because what I recognized was I just wasn't strong enough. Now today I'd say, to hell with you. If you want to go, you go, but you're not taking my kids.
Good for you.
I would say that today. I wouldn't say that back then because my husband ruled everything.
Yeah. But I also think, and this is something, Gail and I and a lot of the moms have talked about, that, there are certain soul exit points. And
Right.
and we as intuitive moms can have an intuition that something's coming, but we maybe don't know what, but we do have a sense that our loved one has an exit point coming up. And there's actually nothing we can do about that, because that is really a pre-agreed upon exit point between our soul posse to help us all grow. And so I think we have to be careful when we say, if only I'd listened to my intuition, that person wouldn't be dead now, because not only does that put an untrue burden of guilt on us, but it also negates the idea that, a soul will come in and say, I'm going to have a short lifetime this time, and I'm going to learn everything I need to learn in that lifetime. And I'm going to push my loved ones to grow from my early exit.
Yeah. And I had a psychic reading shortly after my son died. And that's basically what I was told,
Mhm.
is that he wanted one more lifetime with me, and that's why he came. But he was an evolved soul that really didn't need to come back. Now, the fact that two friends though left at the same time took me a long time to come to understand that,
Yeah.
that, you know, it was that three people decided to go, and they left two children.
Yeah.
But the children that they left were actually better off because they got to go live with their aunt, who was just so fantastic,
Mhm.
so very fantastic.
And Gail, I'm wondering what your thoughts are, if this is triggering stuff for you, or what your thoughts are about all of this.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Sue, that it's not our job to have any control over somebody else's plans, their soul plans.
Mhm.
And as a mom, I had a lot of anxiety about my son. 5 years before he left, I had the most perfect life. Everything was perfect, but I had so much anxiety and I didn't know why. And my GP put me on Lexapro because I was like, there's something wrong. I know there's something wrong, but I just don't know what it is. And then after my son passed unexpectedly, I didn't need to take it anymore. I stopped taking the medication. I knew, I had an epiphany. I'm like, that's what was causing me all this anxiety for these 5 years. It was like building and building and building. It was like, you know, you have like a pit in your stomach, like, you know, something's wrong, but you don't know what it is.
Yes.
And it was torturous. But Verl, I want to read you my denial and my affirmation, because I channeled right with my son. And this morning in my writing, I just wrote this out. And when you were speaking about your son today, it just made me think of, this might be something that will resonate with you. So I wrote, I deny the grief of you leaving me to have the power to make me feel separate from you. I affirm that on a soul level, we are always together and we are forever connected by our eternal bonds of infinite love.
Oh, so
Beautiful,
beautiful.
beautiful. Thank you. Thank you,
Gail,
Gail.
if you want to email that to me after class, I can email that, you know,
Yeah,
to the
that's
group,
beautiful.
just so that everybody has that. That's a really
Yeah.
beautiful
But
example.
when you were speaking, I right away, like I was thinking, I think that's why he had me write that this morning, that you needed to hear it too.
I needed to hear
Right.
it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
your sons probably hang out in the
Yeah,
design
they
routes.
could be. They could be.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, you
Yeah.
guys, I'm favoring this group, and I need to go jump and make sure other people are doing okay. So keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, different countries are stepping up. So there's an example of just, you know, the light overcoming the darkness. Hi, Sue Frederick.
Hey, what are you guys talking about?
Oh, our denials and affirmations. And I just said, I deny, very simple one. I deny fear. I affirm joy. And then I started talking about how, you know, today we're just getting out of a pandemic. I don't want to have to think about nuclear war next. And then Gina was just saying how, yeah, we need to catch our breath. But
Yeah.
even
Well, we deny any war anywhere, the possibility of accelerating and killing more people. We affirm that our true natures are as peaceful divine beings, and that those true natures are becoming more dominant in humanity. And so it is.
and so it is, right?
So Gina, did you talk, or you have anything with your beautiful baby there?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
And Christy?
I wanted to touch on I had highlighted that same sentence you had said about intuition is the open end, but the part before that says faith does not depend on physical facts or on the evidence of the senses because it is born of intuition or the spirit of truth ever living at the center of our being. Its action is infinitely higher than that of intellectual conclusions. It is founded on truth.
God, that's
And
beautiful.
just
Isn't
love that. I don't think I've ever heard intuition described quite like that
I
before.
know, I agree. And I've been talking about intuition for 20 years and I never said it that well. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely writing this on a big board. And that's just absolutely beautiful. And Becky, did you have a chance to add anything here?
Yeah, I'm good.
Are you okay, babe?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, sending you lots of love. And I think I need to go visit another group real quick and then I'll pull us all back into the main, but make sure that you're also talking about the idea of faith, that idea of assurance of things hoped for. I think that's a really important thing to talk about when you think about world peace, Lisa. You know, the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. No matter how troubled the world can look, that we can have a conviction of peace and human evolution to a higher consciousness, and it will happen.
And so it is. Yes. Thank you.
So it is.
Preston, it's a totally different flavor. It's a totally different knowing.
Looks like I missed all the good stuff. Anybody want to summarize what you've been talking about?
Well, affirmations, Sue. Our house burned down in December.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband, the Virgo, is tends to be take it very personally. That is maybe he doesn't use the word karma, but that it is a personal issue that directed toward him. And I have to remind him that, or I know in myself that it's just part of our evolution of our soul. And I try to help him through that and deny that it is anything personal, that this is the way it's supposed to be. Affirmations that we will rebuild our house, that things will be okay. And I have that knowing.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, in our human way of looking at a tragedy like a fire and losing everything, and whether it's a hurricane, a fire, whatever it is that destroys everything we have, our human way can judge that and say, that's a terrible thing. But our divine self can see it from the soul's view, saying, perhaps this is the absolute burning of the old, surrendering the old and what needs to be let go, giving you a chance of ultimate rebirth within a lifetime to a new and better and even more fulfilling life. And it's really impossible to see that or feel that when you're in the thick of it. But ask your husband to consider that someday, maybe even just 5 years from now, he may be looking back at all this and going, we're in a better place now. And I know that sounds crazy to even think that could be true, but it may be that that's what he'll be saying in 5 years,
Hindsight is 2020.
That's right. That's right. When we look back, and we definitely need time with it, but when we go back and look at all of our terrible losses and our broken hearts and all the hard things that have happened in a lifetime, we can often see a pattern that, yes, for the most part, they pushed us to grow and change and become better people and more loving and more compassionate and more focused on what's important. And so our soul can see that these rebirth experiences ultimately do serve our highest good and our soul's growth. But I would never say that to you or him when you're in the middle of your pain. But you have to walk the human path of feeling the pain, as well as holding the possibility in your divine self that this is helping you in some way that you won't be able to understand for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Well, our heart is with you, Vicki. So I think I've lingered out in these groups long enough. So I think I'm going to try to call everybody back. You guys have all talked, right? Okay.
Yes.
Bring everybody back.
Whoops. I left my group early.
We caught you.
I'll catch them on the flip side.
We were in the middle of a sentence.
Yes, I
Michelle was
know.
in the middle of a sentence.
It's like my group, but I just so appreciated the information that was shared from all of you that I can be able to convey to him. So it was kind of that intuition and the gifts and what the four of you were sharing for me. So thank you.
Did you get sent into outer space without your knowing of that was happening? Oh no.
Yeah, I was talking and then it was like, oh wow. So I didn't really do it, but that's what I wanted to say. So thank you.
It was a beam me up Scotty moment, huh?
Pretty much. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. So I think we have everybody back in here now.
Oh, wow, I couldn't find you.
You know, there were so many great things. I didn't even get to get into every room, but there were so many great discussions around affirmations and around faith and around the definition, Emilie's definition of intuition. I'm going to ask, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting your name. Was it, who just read that beautiful excerpt from the book of Emilie's full definition of intuition? Was that Mindy? No, that wasn't Mindy. Who was that?
Was that the one I read?
Yes. Christy, would you read that for the whole group? Because it's so beautiful.
Yeah, that was great.
Faith does not depend on physical facts or on the evidence of the senses, because it is born of intuition, or the spirit of truth ever living at the center of our being. Its action is infinitely higher than that of intellectual conclusions. It is founded on truth. Intuition is the open end within one's own being of the invisible channel ever connecting each individual to God.
You know, that is so profound. And I've talked about intuition for a long time, written about it. And Emilie Cady has the best definition I've ever heard. That's just so beautiful. So I think I'll be putting that on an index card and putting it on my desk so I can always see it and always read it. Just beautiful. So any other thoughts before we talk about the next two chapters, which are some of my favorite things in here?
Hey, Sue, in my group, Becky shared something. Becky, can you just repeat how we ended about God's wanting us to have? Because I love what you just shared with us before we return back to everybody.
Yes, please, Becky.
Oh, thank you. It's in the chapter of faith, but something about just having a desire for something that's God inspired.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, that's God wanting to give.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in other words, when we long for something, that is because God is saying it's on the way. Is that pretty much what you're saying, Becky?
Yeah, I have this in mind, and yeah.
Right.
I had never heard it or read it that way, and I was like, oh.
It was a moment. It was an Emilie Cady moment. That's beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about chapter 7, which I have to say is there's so many favorite things, but chapter 7, when I was reading in there, let me just get the book open on that chapter. Yeah. So first she starts out talking about chemicalization. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with that idea. It's actually something that the Hindus and the Buddhists talk about. They say when you really decide to grow spiritually, that and you start seeking and meditating and really trying to understand the world through a spiritual viewpoint, that all your negative patterns will come up for review, because you've got to decide now, are you going to release those negative patterns or keep them with you? Like, it's stirring up the old and the new inside of you so that you can sort through it and decide. So for example, your worst habit might really come into focus a lot when you are going through a huge spiritual growth spurt. And Emilie Cady calls it, and Unity calls it, chemicalization. So what's interesting about that is it's also can be manifest in your body as like an illness. And that tends to happen with me. Like when I'm going through a tremendous time of growth and learning and really awareness, enhanced awareness, I'll suddenly get a really bad flu or a really bad cold or something. Sorry. Perfect
like that.
timing.
Just like now.
Perfect, yeah, perfect timing. And it's sort of like your body, your cells are changing and your cells are trying to keep up with, your cells are trying to learn to vibrate faster as you're raising your energy and learning more and becoming a higher frequency vibrational being. And so your body has to kind of go through this process of like redoing it and refixing up things. Have any of you ever experienced that, or you know what I'm talking about? No?
I had it a couple times, and if that wasn't the case, I thought it was anyway. So.
Yeah. You know, I've also noticed that with my migraines, because, you know, I'll be thinking that I'm doing okay and I'm learning a lot of good stuff and I'm really excited about what I'm learning and doing. And then I get a migraine that kind of puts me down for a day. So I have to always try to look at it as, well, you know, my body needs a moment here to catch up with what's happening. But the other thing, and my Hindu teacher used to say, that once we start doing a lot of meditation and chanting and purification processes, that something will come into our life that gives us an opportunity to make a choice. So like when I was single back in my 30s and 40s, early 40s, I would be going through great inner transformation at the ashram and everything. And then this man would appear who carried all my old negative patterns of relationships. And I would have to kind of decide, am I going to go back into that kind of relationship, or am I going to move forward? And so he would say, my teacher would say, yeah, that shows that you're growing when a lot of things come up for you to look at and you have to decide. And it could be money problems. It could be maybe if you've been sober for many years and you're going through a lot of inner growth, suddenly you find yourself wanting to have a drink or something. It doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that there's this churning up inside of you as you start vibrating at a higher vibration. So that's what she means by chemicalization, which I love. And she says that it means there's a clash between the old condition, which was based on falsehood, fear, and wrong ways of thinking, and the new thought or the truth that's entering you, which is just beautiful. That's on page 87. So the other thing, my favorite thing in the whole book is, is on page 88. And it's where she says, personality applies to the human part of you, the person, the external. And on the next page, she says, individuality is the term used to denote the real man or the real human. The more God comes into visibility through a person, the more individualized they become. And so what, as you read down, as you keep reading more, well, she even talks about Emerson. She says Emerson was a man of large individuality, but retiring personality. He was grandly simple. He was of a shrinking, retiring nature or personality, but in proportion to the human side of him, was the God in him that shone forth in greater degree. And I so love that. And I just wonder what your thoughts are about that. And the other thing she says is on page 90, she says, we cultivate individuality by listening to the still small voice within. And it makes sense that if we have a very loud, boisterous personality and we're talking all the time, we don't even take time to listen to our own still small voice within, which is where we hear the truth and where we connect with our God consciousness. And so those of us who tend to be more on the quiet side means hopefully that we are getting more in touch with that still small voice within and more of the godness inside of us. I found that greatly comforting because I've never felt like I had a real strong, powerful personality that everybody would go, oh, she's a great personality. That's not me. People would always say, oh, she's really shy, really quiet. I'm not that bad anymore, but I was very shy when I was younger. But now I don't look at that as a bad thing. I just look at it as perhaps I was really listening to that still small voice within, But what are your thoughts on that, you guys? Okay, nobody has a thought about it. All right.
I appreciated how
I
she
think
We
you're
all have
all
small
listening
voices.
to the still small voice within, right?
But it was great the way she defined that out, because I think personality and individuality, I wouldn't have been able to define that myself without having her do that for me. And it helped me realize or see in myself in those moments where, the personality side was reacting out of some behavior, right? Some kind of fear or some kind of selfishness or critical, being critical or something, versus the individuality where I'm quiet and still and reflecting and absorbing and getting in touch with God, So for me, I thought that was a great, opportunity to really just even like Emerson, right? Like seeing, well, okay, we know of Emerson, right? So how can I apply this to what I know of Emerson and being able to apply it to myself afterwards? So I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Lorraine. The other thing is it gives me a comfort about women, because women in our natural state, we're sweet and funny and friendly, but, we're not like a big guy in the world running a company that's going to be really loud and boisterous and in charge and all of that stuff. For the most part, we have a different way of showing up in the world that I think is way more intuitive, way more heartfelt, and also just as smart, but just expressing it in a different way. And I also think about it in terms of Native American culture. I love Native American culture, and in my past lifetime, I know that I was an Apache in one lifetime. I experienced that in a past lifetime regression. And, they definitely in that culture did not believe in wasting words. There was a lot of value given to the silence, and they would sit in their sweat lodges and stuff in silence and do a lot of, and the Hindus as well, and the Buddhists, like I would go to meditation retreats where you didn't speak to each other for 4 days and all you
Oh
did
my
was sit in
God.
meditation. But what happens in that time is you get so tuned into your own God consciousness, your own higher self, that when you do start having to go out in the world and like order food in a restaurant or something, you just feel like, wow, the world is so loud, you know, like I don't need to have all this loud stuff in my life. I just want to be in that quiet, sacred space again. So those are my thoughts about chapter 7. I just loved pretty much everything she wrote about in there. And then in chapter 8, spiritual understanding, she has this beautiful thing that says, stagnation is death. A pool cannot be kept clean and sweet and renewed unless there is an outlet as well as an inlet. It's our business to keep the outlet open and God's business to keep the stream flowing in and through us. Isn't that beautiful?
I love that. I wrote that. Yeah.
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 So, you know, God pours in the wisdom and the love into us, but it is our business to keep it flowing out to all of our loved ones and friends and in the world. So when we are together, we're sharing that love, sharing that wisdom, sharing that understanding. That is such a beautiful, energetic understanding of that. And then she says, as we grow, we share with others what we're learning. We share the wisdom and love of higher consciousness, or we become stagnant. And then she has a quote, take the light as it is revealed to you and use it for others. You know, that's something I've always believed in. Like, when you learn something, it's your job to kind of share that. I've always thought, you know, and, you know, that's why, like, as soon as I really understood numerology or felt like I finally really understood it, I instantly started teaching it. You know, it's like whatever I feel like I've mastered or even just begun to learn, I really always want to share that with people. It's like that inlet outlet thing. And it makes you feel like you're in the flow of God's grace when you're sharing those things that you've learned, things that you may have struggled hard to learn, but you're sharing them with love and wisdom to the people around you. And certainly if you hear any of the stories of all these beautiful people in this class, from Verl to Gail to on and on, that all the hardships they've been through with grief and loss, they are constantly sharing the wisdom of what they've learned. And that is the inlet and the outlet of what we are here to do and be. So I'm going to break you. Oh my gosh, we're running out of time.
It's 8:30.
Is it okay if we go into breakout rooms for 5 minutes and talk? Yeah, you guys good with that?
That with me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to throw you back in here. Recreate. All right, jump in. And the first question is about chemicalization and individuality and personality. I better go in and tell everybody. Why am I not joining here? Let's see. So I forgot to mention to you that your first question is talking about if you've experienced chemicalization, and then talking about individuality versus personality, and then the inlet and outlet idea and what that means for you. So take it away.
Hello. Yes,
So I just wanted to make sure that I had said what the assignment was to talk about chemicalization, if you've
Yeah,
ever
we got that.
experienced that, and then also personality versus individuality, what you think about that. and the idea of inlet and outlet and how that plays out in your life. And now I got to go to another room.
Okay.
And it's been great.
I'm not
Oh,
sure
that's
if I
great.
clarified the assignment, so I got to say it now. Make sure you talk about if you've experienced chemicalization and what that means for you, and what your thoughts are about personality versus individuality, and also your idea of inlet and outlet and how that shows up in your life and work.
In 5 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes or less. Go for it.
Okay.
Okay, Kate, you're on.
The chemicalization, I'm thinking there's so many times when, if there's the least bit of depression or something like that, it will affect me physically. I mean, the back will hurt, the legs will hurt or whatever. And
Right.
there's a constant going back to affirming that, I am all right. I'm fine.
Gail? No, I don't know where she went. Where's my Gail? Oh, did I lose my Gail? Darn, she's not here. Okay, well, I guess I will just go jump in to a group. I'm just listening.
So
And what, I have a different version of the book. Sorry to interrupt. What is the number? Do you guys have numbers next to all of your?
Mine's different too.
No.
Okay, because I wasn't
But-
sure what page this is on.
Do you have, so you have different page numbers in yours probably?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too, apparently.
So tell me what you're looking for and I'll figure out where it is.
Chemicalization.
Yeah, so chemicalization is in the beginning of chapter 7. Do you have chapters listed? Chapter 7?
Yeah. And I have numbers next to all the different paragraphs. And
So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth paragraph of chapter 7 starts talking about chemicalization.
okay.
Do you see that?
Mhm.
No.
I don't see the word chemicalization,
Oh,
but
that's so weird.
I
So,
know.
so the paragraph says, one term often used and not always clearly understood is chemicalization. Did you ever put soda into sour milk, cider, or other acidic fluid and witness the agitation or excited action that takes place? That's all in chapter 7, in the beginning of it, the 4th paragraph. It'd be
okay.
weird if you don't even have that in your.
Well, I don't.
I
I'm
know,
not
I
seeing it.
don't either.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, I too.
Well,
Yeah,
she
that's
talked
true.
about in the footnote here that there were some versions where it was left, some editions where the chemicalization was left out of the book. So
That's not okay, right?
yeah, they evidently, it said that that it was excluded from some editions. So maybe that's one of the editions that it was left out of.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. That makes a lot more sense
It
now.
makes sense, but it annoys me as an
Right.
author that,
So-
they were editing Emilie's ideas.
Right.
But maybe you could send that to us, Sue, just in an email if you have time.
That definition of chemicalization.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll put
maybe
that
that's-
in the after class.
Yeah,
thank
plus
you.
the milk and soda or the milk and vinegar sounded really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened?
Oh, the
That's right.
volcanoes that we used to make as kids.
And let me just say, let me read again what she said further on that really explains it. She says, there has been a clash between the old condition, which was based on falsehood, fear, and wrong ways of thinking, and the new thought or the truth entering into you. I'll send you that. I'll write that in there.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think you described it as negative traits or negativity coming up, personality that that maybe is negative as you become more aware and you're growing and learning. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. Say that again, or what's the question there?
It's okay. It's just that it feels like the more aware and the more I felt I was growing, then I would get these little like judgments, and it's like, where's that coming from? Where is that coming from? That's not who I am.
You mean judgment in your own head of yourself?
Yeah, well, no, of other people.
Oh, of other people.
Things. Yeah. Well, myself too, yes, but it's
Well,
just
that's
like,
part of the human.
That's not who I am.
I know, but that's all that truly, that is part of the human experience. And like, you know, how I talk in my books about how we have the ego lens and the divine lens, which we could say is the human lens versus the soul lens. The soul lens sees everyone as all souls on a journey, learning and growing. But the ego lens is always telling us, no, that person isn't good enough. I'm not good enough. This is wrong with that. That's wrong with this. And so as we navigate life with one foot in both of those perspectives, the more you grow spiritually, your ego will voice itself even louder. It's like the ego gets more threatened by how you may be growing spiritually. And so that critical voice can even get louder, you know, but then hopefully as you keep growing spiritually, the ego starts to kind of settle back and calm down a little bit. The ego definitely gets threatened when we grow and change, you know. And for me, it turns into self-criticism, you know, like when I was first teaching, like I would go and teach a class and it would feel great. And then I'd come home and my ego voice would be going, oh, well, who do you think you are? Like you should have said this, or you should have done that differently, or, you know, and so then I had to learn like, okay, well, that voice doesn't help me because it doesn't really make me better. So I have to come home and learn how to meditate and turn that off so that I can be more constructive in my growth and in my teaching. But that's hard when we're human. We're gonna hear that critical voice.
What was the next question after chemicalization?
Individuality versus personality, and then the inlet and outlet idea.
For the personalities, it just made me think that we're all here on Earth playing characters, and that's the personality that we design in some way before we come here. Because like just our foundation is that God, the soul, and then the personality is like on top of it. And so I just connected it with what I've been learning about sort of pre-birth planning and the avatar that we take on in this world. And it was cool to read it from her perspective, you know.
So I have this really cool recording actually that a mom sent me. Her daughter, who I think her daughter was only about 10 years old when she suddenly died of a brain aneurysm. But this little girl had been phenomenally intelligent and wise and enlightened. And the mom had been trying to raise her in Catholic school. And the little girl would come home and say, Mom, they're getting it wrong. They're just not right. And so the mom held a camera up to her, and this little girl wasn't sick. There was no reason that the mom would want to videotape this, but she did. She held up the video and she said, okay, so tell me what you believe in. If there's no hell, like, how does it all work, you know? And this 10-year-old little girl on this video says, and she drew a big map of different rooms, and she held it up for her mom and she said, this is where we go to pick our body type. and we pick the body that's going to help us best in our lifetime. And this is where we go to get our personality, and we choose the personality that's going to help us grow the most. And this is where we go. And she had outlined all these things we do before we jump into the lifetime. This is a 10-year-old little girl. And she said, and then when we leave that lifetime, we go and have a conversation with God, and we find out how we did in that lifetime and all this stuff. And this mom sent me this when I was doing a session with her after her daughter had died. And it brought the mom so much peace, because her daughter completely understood life and death and how it all works. And she was teaching us before she left here, and choosing our personality was part of what we do before we come down here.
Wow, it's incredible.
Isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel guilty because I'm keeping everybody late. So let me go call everybody back in and we can say goodbye. All right, everybody. So I just want to thank everybody and just say for next week, please read the next 4 chapters of the book, chapter 9, 10, 11, 12. And please write down any comments or questions about what you're reading or your thoughts about all this to share. And please come next week. We only had 13 people this time, and I love having everybody here. So, and thank you all for your input and your sharing. And I'm just going to do a quick little closing prayer. So let's breathe in and let's feel the gratitude of the love that we hold everybody in, the love, the gratitude, the awareness of how much wisdom is in this group of souls, and how wonderful it is to hear people's stories and to know that we are all learning from each other, and we are holding all of us in love and light this week as we all move into the things, the challenges that we have. Toby's trip to see her son, and Verl feeling good and healthy after going through the anniversary of a great loss, and all of us facing whatever it is we're facing. We hold us all in the light and the love of higher consciousness. And so it is.
So it is.
I love you
Good night,
all.
everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.